Good morning and welcome to the Hawaii State Senate Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection. This is a live streamed hearing on YouTube. This is our 10 a.m. agenda. It is a regular agenda, so we will take testimony on two measures. SB 2695 is first, relating to privacy. This measure amends the definitions of identifier and specified data element and amends the definition of personal information for purposes of notifying affected persons of data and security breaches. We have received, if you've testified and submitted it online, we have received it and reviewed it. We have a 2-minute testimony rule in the Senate, and then we'll take questions. First up, we have the DCCA Division of Financial Institutions with comments. Good morning.
Aloha, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Iris Ikeda. I'm the Commissioner of Financial Institution. So the department appreciates that the committee recognizes that our financial institutions must follow federal privacy laws. We offer one amendment to delete the identifier, the Office of Thrift Services, as it merged with the Office of the Comptroller in July 2011. I'm available for questions. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Office of Consumer Protection in support. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. The Office of Consumer Protection strongly supports this measure. We have a question to ask ourselves. Do we want to continue to lag behind the rest of the nation, or do we want to actually update our definition of personal information? I'd like to address one point in the comments by a number of commenters, and I think it's really unfortunate. And there is a concern that's been expressed that this would require the reporting of a security breach, even if the information is all encrypted. Now, I'm not sure whether this was an intentionally misleading or this was just an oversight, because this measure is within the security breach chapter. A security breach is defined elsewhere, is not touched by this. And the requirements of a company that collects data whose data is breached are only triggered when a security breach occurs. The definition of a security breach involves unredacted and unencrypted information. So I think that really addresses about 2/3 of the opposition to this measure, that for somehow this measure doesn't recognize the value of redaction or encryption. It does. It doesn't change existing law. Existing law already addresses that. This simply updates the definition of personal information so that we are no longer going to be behind the times. And I think you've seen testimony across the executive branch and from the public strongly in support. And we're really getting down to a few holdouts that are unfortunately not on board with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Department of Education in support.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, Michael Otsugi, Assistant Superintendent for the Office of Information Technology Services, testifying in behalf of the Department of Education. We stand on our written testimony in support of the measure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for standing on your testimony, Mr. Otsugi. Next, we have the Hawaii Bankers Association with comments. Student Advocates for Responsible Technology, Ms. Giammarino. In support. Good morning.
Good morning.
Aloha, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Reina. I'm 17 and a senior at Punahou School. I'm here to represent Student Advocates for Responsible Technology, or START, a youth advocacy collective I founded this year with students from Punahou and Iolani. Our mission is to promote equitable and ethical technology policies within the state legislature, which is why we're here today. In an age of exponentially accelerating technological development, we believe privacy law needs to reflect the times. And in its current form, HRS 487N fails to do this. We therefore support and believe in SB 2695 as a crucial first step towards a comprehensive privacy law. Not only will it amend the definition of personal information to include biometrics used at our airports and in products like Amazon's Alexa, but it will also account for our names and initials no longer being our only, quote, identifiers. As youth, we know this better than most. The social media profile names, emails, and phone numbers we spend so much time using are just as revealing of our identities and ought to be included as identifiers. Finally, my family was affected by the HMSA data breach last month. Knowing that my family was only one of the hundreds of thousands whose medical data may have been compromised by the cyber attack only reinforces my support of SB 2695, which will add medical identification numbers, a category of data breached last month, as a specified data element.
Good morning, members of the committee. Hey, my name is Connor. I work with Reina on START, and just to elaborate on the social media points relating to data privacy, I would like to point out that for many among my generation, information in relating to our social media profiles is quintessential for daily life. It influences how we communicate, how we interact with each other, and fundamentally, losing such information to a data breach would constitute a threat not only to ourselves, but to our friends. Over the past few years, I have seen many of my friends and classmates have accounts on programs such as Instagram and Discord hacked, and this has entailed other individuals gaining access to usernames and passwords which are currently not protected under Hawaii Revised Statute 478N. And with this information, hackers have used these accounts to spread malicious links containing malware, or attempt to defraud my classmates and other individuals that follow them of financial information. As an example, I had a friend last year with an art account who lost the account to a hacker, and with the hacked account, whoever gained control of it attempted to spread scams related to cryptocurrency and also to sites containing explicit material. Now the argument here is not necessarily on cryptocurrency or malicious content, and it's more the question of how can the state of Hawaii protect those when their data is not currently being protected under the law. So I'm in strong support of SB 2695 to ensure that the protections for data, including usernames, passwords, words and security codes, and phone numbers, all of which are essential to securing and logging into accounts on programs such as Instagram, Discord, YouTube, etc., are secure, and to ensure that such information cannot be used to defraud others among our peers and in the general public. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much for coming in today. Next, we have the Hawaii Financial Services Association in opposition online. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. Marvin Dang for the Hawaii Financial Services Association. We oppose the bill as drafted. We are only focusing on one limited aspect of this, and that's the specified data element on page 3, paragraph 1, dealing with Social Security numbers. The issue is this. All of us have Social Security numbers. The 9-digit Social Security numbers, the issue really comes down to how much of it can be visible as part of a redaction before it becomes problematic. Right now, in my testimony, I cited on page 2 of my testimony in the footnote, 9 different statutes which allow redaction down to the last 4 digits. In other words, the first 5 digits wouldn't be visible, but the last 4 digits would be. And that's in the statutes. When you record judgments at the Bureau of Conveyances, the law requires that you redact down and show the last 4 digits. In addition to all those different statutes, the 9 statutes I mentioned, it's also in the court record rules of the judiciary, which allows redaction down to the last 4 digits. I testified on this last year on Senate Bill 1178. I think this is the 4th session I'm testifying on this issue. We can't deal with it piecemeal this way. We need to holistically look at all the different statutes and deal with it in that fashion. And that's why we're opposed to this bill. And we have a recommendation in our testimony.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. That's all the registered testimony we've received on this measure. Is there anyone else who'd like to testify in person? Okay. Well, you raise your hand first. Go ahead.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying in strong support. So, Today's tech-driven world has opened the floodgates to unprecedented flows of information and communication. However, with increased connectivity and a lack of regulation, data security risks loom over businesses and consumers. As data breaches and cyber attacks become more common, there is a growing concern about how personal information is being used, processed, stored by businesses and organizations. Consumers provide companies with a great deal of personal information, including sensitive data about finances, health, and other records that can lead to theft and fraud. Oftentimes, consumers don't fully understand how companies will use information or if they'll share it with others. Consumers may be unaware that they have certain rights regarding the use of information. Legislators around the world are trying to keep up with the pace with new and emerging cyber threats and vulnerabilities to ensure privacy acts are safeguarded. Europe and the United States are paving the way towards stronger data regulation and oversight. In 2018, the European Union passed the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, which is a key piece of legislation that regulates the collection and management of data. The United States also has a handful of federal laws, such as the Privacy Act of 1974, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, the HIPAA Act, and the COPPA Act, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, amongst a few others. But unlike the European Union, currently there is no comprehensive federal law that protects data and privacy in the United States. The most common legislative trends this year include proposals about requiring state and local government entities to report data breaches. So in 2006, we did have a successful law about the breach in data, and it requires entities to notify affected people of any unauthorized access or acquisition of unencrypted, unredacted personal information, where illegal use of personal information has occurred and is reasonably likely to occur again to create a risk of harm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kelly McCandless, and I'm testifying as an individual. I have 4 privacy certifications, and I was a member of the legislature's task force that was founded in 2019 to address 21st century privacy law. So this is something that I was a privacy officer for one of the largest employers in the state. So that's my background in privacy, and I am strongly in support of this bill. 2 things I'd like to address in my oral testimony, and that is first, the identifiers. And as you may fairly be aware, on this is the legislature website. It has for each of the legislatures, and in there very clearly is your name, very clearly is your email address, very clearly is your phone number. So associating one identifier to another is very easy. So right now we say that if it's the name and a social security number, it's a breach. But if it's your email address and social security number, it's not a breach. Well, how many people don't know that Senator Fukunaga at hawaiilegislature.gov is you? Everybody can figure that out. It's very easy to Google and take an email address and associate it to a name. So the risk really isn't different. And that's what this law is trying to address, the risk. So that's why the identifiers are so important. But you've heard other testimony on that as well. What I'd like to talk to now is social security number. If you look at social security numbers in Hawaii, every adult over the age of 20 is either first 3 digits is a 575 or a 576. That's it for anybody over 20. So they say, oh, we published the last 4 in all these places. Well, if the first 3 are already known, and then there's the middle 2, which is by year, and some years only had 9 different middle 2s. So if the first one's geographic, the second one's by year, and they publish the last 4, how hard is it to re-engineer your social security number? It's very easy. There are websites that do that. So the bottom line is, while I understand there are places that it's being used, it is a risk. And that's what I'd like the law to look at and this group to look at, not just what are we doing, but what are we doing that's unsafe. So I appreciate the chance to testify. If you have questions, I'm available for those. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I would note that you were registered. I just missed you. Sorry. Is there anyone else who would like to testify? Okay, members, questions? Vice Chair.
For Office of Consumer Protection, I know that, since the original legislation was adopted, that was also the product of a task force back in 2005, 2006, that was led by the Attorney General's office. I've received complaints relating to, the HMSA data breach, which this bill tries to address and protect more data. Are there instances where your department and/or other state agencies can assist in taking, say, corrective action with those entities who suffer a data breach? Because, in the HMSA instance, I had so many constituents complaining that, the notification that they received seemed to be really very incomplete and not really that helpful.
Sure, thanks for the question. And the statute lays out the requirements of the notice. Our office is tasked with receiving notices of security breaches that affect more than 1,000 individuals in the state. If we receive a notice of a security breach, let me back up. It's the communication from the company typically includes a letter to our office, which also attaches a sample of the notice of security breach that's been provided to the person affected by the security breach. We will review that, and if we see something that is missing, is not compliant with the statute, we will reach out directly to the company that provided the notice and engage in a back and forth with them.
Okay. Well, I know at the time that, the law was originally passed, Hawaii was very proactive in working pretty closely with a lot of the companies. Has your office received complaints regarding that recent incident involving HMSA?
In fact, we did not directly receive complaints, but we're aware, obviously, of this because it affects so many people in Hawaii. Our office did not receive a notice of security breach from HMSA. The underlying breach, my understanding was the data of a vendor of HMSA, and we did indeed receive a notice of security breach from the vendor of the data. So we reviewed that, we have that in our files, and I won't say too much more about that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Sure.
Senator
Thank you, Vice
Fofaro.
Chair and Chair, for bringing this up. This is very important because we all got them. Every single one, my father-in-law, my mom, my wife, me, all of us got the HMSA. But when you look at it, you're thinking somebody's scamming you to go call that number to check if you had been breached. So guess what I did with the first one that I got? Went to in a rubbish can. But then the rest I got, then I started looking into them. Same thing what Vice Chair just said. It's very, I guess you can say dangerous that much people is affected with HMSA, when HMSA is the largest provider in our state. So those are the things that we thought that we're protected when we sign all of these papers, thinking that we're protected. But the question is, if I only got the one letter, not knowing anything else, what else that we can do is proactive with letting the people out there know how to make sure that if something like that come in the mail, either to call you guys, because I didn't think to call, well, I'm the senator, sorry. I didn't think to call my senator, but I'm the senator. But how I would know to call you guys? You see what I'm saying? In that letter, it didn't say nothing. It just said your data might have been breached, and that was it. So I figured it was a scam. I never called a number, and then somebody gave me a subscription for Sports Illustrated, so I threw them away. But how can we protect the consumer going forward when they get these letters to be how to give you information to let them know that if they get this kind of stuff that they should call you guys and ask you guys these questions? Because pretty much everybody in Hawaii don't know that. I didn't know that until I heard what the Vice Chair just said. I just threw it in a rubbish can. You know what I mean? So that is good to know that we can call you guys to find out if there's anything to that breach.
That's right, and thank you for bringing that up. And I think, that's something I can take back to our director too and say, is there something that we can learn from this, that we can go ahead and be more proactive with the public and out there when there's an incident that affects so many people.
Yes.
We can communicate and let them know that we're a resource for questions and answers.
Right on. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, guys.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move to the last measure on this 10 a.m. agenda, SB 524 SD1, relating to business regulation. This measure authorizes the insurance commissioner to require the commissioner's pre-approval for certain salary increases granted to any person receiving a salary from an insurer. DCCA Insurance Division up first with comments.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, coordinator, testifying on behalf of DCCA. We stand on with the testimony, offer comments on available to answer any questions.
Thank you for standing on your comments, Mr. Ito. We only have one other testifier from the NAMIC in opposition. Any questions for the Insurance Division? Okay, seeing none, do we need to recess? Okay, well then we'll move right into decision-making. On the first measure, the recommendation, SB 2695, is to pass with amendments. Let me see here. We will adopt the amendments proposed by the Division of Financial Institutions, which are on page 5, section 3G, subsection 1, which clarify the section of the Code of Federal Regulations that we are citing to deem which institutions, banks really, that are already going to be deemed compliant with this measure. And we'll defect the effective date to July 1, 2040. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, chair votes aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair also votes aye. Senator McKelvey is excused. Senator Richards?
Aye.
Senator Awa is also excused. Measure passes.
Thank you. Next measure is SB 524 SD1. The recommendation is to pass this measure out with a defective effective date of July 1, 2040. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, chair votes aye. Oh,
Yeah, just quick
Senator
discussion.
Richards.
Yeah, I am concerned a little about some of the testifying, so I support the intent, but I'm going with reservations.
so noted.
Similar.
So noted as well. The defective date is to foster conversation on this matter.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are no other comments, passing with amendments, chair votes aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair votes with reservations. Senator McKelvey?
Yes.
Senator Richards?
Reservations?
Senator Awa is also excused. Measure is adopted.
Thank you very much. We will adjourn that measure and we will open on our 10:01 a.m. agenda. This is our 10:01 a.m. February 27, 2024 agenda in conference room 229 to make decisions on the following measures which were previously heard in their respective subject matter committees. We've received written testimony on all of these measures, and I'm prepared to make recommendations. The first measure, SB 2092, relating to the PUC, the recommendation on this measure is to adopt the proposed amendments by Hawaiian Electric, making the requirements permissive, and to defect the effective date of this measure to July 1, 2040. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, passing with amendments, chair votes aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair also votes aye. Of the CPN members present, are there any voting with reservations or objections?
With reservations.
Okay, reservations for Senator McKelvey, Senator Richards.
Aye.
Okay, and Senator Awa is excused. Measure is adopted.
Thank you very much. Next measure is SB 3129 SD1 relating to health. The recommendation on this measure is to adopt the proposed amendments from the John A. Burns School of Medicine, which would add the dean of the nursing school or their designee to the task force. And we will also amend the measure to change the Kaiser designee to a representative of Kaiser Foundation Health Plan and Hospitals or designee, so that we don't need to get too specific on whoever that person is. Kaiser can have a person on the task force. There's already a defective effective date, so those are the proposed amendments. Any discussion? Okay, chair votes aye.
Thank you. Of the CPN members present, are there any voting with reservations or objections? Hearing none, measure is adopted.
Thank you very much. Next measure is SB 3194 relating to energy. This is one of the wheeling measures on this agenda. The recommendation is to pass with amendments. We will adopt the proposed PUC amendments that require the PUC to submit a report. Any discussion?
Chair.
Senator
Yeah,
Richards.
on this, there's a lot going on with our power grid right now. And I'm concerned that we're making a lot of decisions very quickly. So I do support the intent, but I'm going with reservations on this.
So noted. Any other discussion? Just to respond briefly, as you've noted, we've heard a number of measures on wheeling. There is one later in the agenda. The intention and the recommendation today is to keep several of these vehicles moving for discussion purposes, since there are so many utility issues that we need to obtain some clarity on before the end of the session. So your reservations are noted.
Appreciate that,
Keep
Chair.
moving them forward.
Yeah.
Our electrical bill from the state of Hawaii.
So noted as well. So if there are no other comments, then the recommendation is to pass with amendments, and the chair votes aye.
Thank you. Of the CPN members present, are there any reservations or objections other than, let's see, Senator Richards? Okay, if not, measure is adopted.
Thank you very much. The next measure is SB 3197, relating to advertising. I would really like to keep the conversation going on this, but the opposition to this measure is just overwhelming. So the recommendation is to defer. The next measure is SB 3287, relating to towing companies. Let's see here. The recommendation on this measure is to pass with amendments. I'd like to note that there is a defective effective date on this measure, and the fee amounts are already blank. So we will adopt the proposed amendments by the Office of Consumer Protection, requiring companies to accept payments by credit card in an attempt to avoid the ATM fee issues at the sites. And that's it. Are there any comments or questions, members? Okay, seeing none, passing with amendments, chair votes aye.
Thank you. Of the CPN members present, are there any voting with reservations or objections? Hearing none, measure is adopted.
Thank you very much. Last measure is SB 3195 SD1, relating to renewable energy. This is the other wheeling measure. I appreciate the testimony submitted. I would note in the preamble that the bill is about wheeling. So the recommendation, there's already a defective effective date on this measure. So the recommendation is to adopt the clarifying amendments proposed by the Hawaii State Energy Office. And there are also some technical, non-substantive amendments, and I'd like to keep this vehicle and this discussion moving. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, passing with amendments, chair votes aye.
Of the CPN members present, are there any voting with reservations or objections? Hearing none, measure is adopted.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned.